What is up, guys? Today we're going to be focusing on the Lotus and the whole wide body aspect. I went ahead and put it back to OEM the most that I could. I don't want to waste too much time, so I have the factory A panels on and the wheels and all that. I don't have any spacers on or anything. So we're just going to kind of give us a good starting out point to see where we're starting out and where we're going to end up. I have the flares already that I plan on working off of, and I have some other parts that I'm ready to get taped up, so we'll go ahead and get things started. Alright guys, so behind me is the Lotus Evore 400 bumper replica. This is not the genuine bumper from Lotus. This is a replica from Sport that I picked up. I actually picked it up used, which is extremely rare because typically finding aftermarket parts alone, even brand new for the Lotus, is kind of tough. You typically have longer wait times and stuff like that, but I actually found that bumper used from a guy we met in Chicago, drove about halfway to pick it up, and then I actually picked up some other parts from him. So here's one of them. It's just some aftermarket A panels, which will be replacing this right here. As you can see, this is kind of flat, kind of hides the tire a decent amount, which is fine from factory, but this one will actually cut in a little bit more so you can actually see a little bit more of the tire, especially once the wide body's on. I think it'll look pretty good. So overall, I would say the fitment is pretty good. There are a couple spots that I need to kind of touch up or refiberglass because this is a full fiberglass rear bumper. This side, even though it doesn't look like it's fitting that well, it slides up and it fits pretty perfect. I don't think I'll really need to touch that side. Apart from kind of just smoothing everything out to make sure that it all is smooth when the car gets wrapped. There are a couple spots in here. It just doesn't sit super evenly, which isn't a huge deal. I'll be able to touch that up, no big problem. And then something like very minor is just it's chipping there, which isn't a huge deal, mostly because once I get the wide body flares on, all of this is going to be cut anyway all up through here, so there's no need in even trying to fix that. So as it goes for wheels, the wheels that I have on the car right now are Exo Luxury Abstract Caro, I think is probably the right way to pronounce it. There's no spacers on or anything right now. I got these wheels, I would say not even 3 to 4 months ago, and I'll be honest, the fitment is like perfect. Haven't had any issues with them at all. It's going to kind of be shitty to see them go because I haven't had them that long. And they look great on the car, but obviously with me going wide body, I won't be able to run them. And with how wide I'm going, even if I threw a spacer on, it's just not worth trying to find the right spacer because it would be such a big spacer. It would just be a risk for me to drive it at that point. All right, guys, here's like a good front view of the car of how it sits currently. The front bumper is aftermarket. It's also a bumper from Sport. Luckily, it was on the car when I already purchased it. And then if you guys want to see more or less the sides of how wide the car sits from factory, it does have like a good amount of, I don't know, wideness or whatever to it. But I knew once I purchased the car that I would be going wide body. So it's not like sad to see it get cut up or anything like that. So basically what we'll be doing today is throwing the wide body wheels on the car just to show how much wider the car is going to sit. I do have the flares already from Clinch that I'll be putting on to use those more or less as a starting off point, and then I'll show you guys what the process is going to be to actually start the wide body. I am still waiting on my suspension to come back from AirTech. They have that right now because they are working on building a custom set of struts for me to be able to bag the car, which is going to be awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started. Just a little bit wider, you know, not too much, nothing crazy, just a couple inches or so. No, but yeah, this is a lot wider than I thought, but I mean, it's pretty fucking wide. It's definitely gonna need a good size over fender on it. Luckily, Clinched has different sizes available that you can order, so I got some from them to kind of just test fit everything. So I think it'll go pretty well. I'll leave the wheel specs somewhere in this video. I don't know them offhand. I have them written down somewhere just for you guys that want to know. So one weird thing about Lotus is the whole front end is not open at all. only this guy right here pops open, and that's just really just to top off your fluids. So this whole front section is just called the front clam that comes off the body. There's not really front fenders per se, because this all here is just one piece that goes across the whole body. There are these smaller pieces called A panels. This is what the factory ones look like. They're pretty basic. They are just, you know, flat. Nothing exciting about them. Luckily, the gentleman that I bought the rear bumper from also is selling a set of A panels from Hethel Sport as well. Here's what they actually look like from Hethel Sport. They have this thing right here. I'm just not hugely fond of. I feel like it kind of just looks a little odd. So what I did with one side so far is just cut it. So I'll show you guys what that looks like once it's on the car. Now, by no means is this like installed. This is kind of just mocked up right now. There's just two small bolts that you have to tighten to get the bottom, and then there's two other small bolts that are above that you need to tighten for it to actually be installed. But this is just to give you an idea. I'll go ahead and lower the car so you guys can actually get a better idea of how it's going to look. I don't want to go too much lower just for risk of cracking the front clam, but just to give you an idea, like how much wider that truly is. Having that A panel replaced with the aftermarket one from Hethel Sport makes a huge difference of just exposing the tire. If I do decide to keep these wheels, don't worry, I will be getting new tires. These fronts are pretty spent. They're, you know, I could drive on them for a little bit, but I plan on getting something with more tread and probably less of a stretch. I have run stretch tires in the past, but I think something for the Lotus at least, I should do something a little bit more meaty. So this little guy right here is a universal flare from Clinched. Check them out for sure. They'll definitely get you taken care of. They have a lot of different styles of flares that you can choose from. They have photos of them on different vehicles and all that. And it's nice because you can make cuts to them and all that if you need them to fit particular areas of the car. If you use a good amount of heat, they actually kind of form and bend around the body of the car as well. So I'll go ahead and get this one thrown on for you guys to see how it looks. So one thing I will point out, before putting or testing any flares that you have on your car, I highly recommend taping off the back sides of it. This is like an ABS plastic, so not that it will necessarily scratch it super easily, but it is a hard surface, so I would definitely recommend putting like a painter's tape or something on the edges just to avoid any scratches or anything on your paint. All right, so by no means is this extremely accurate of how the flare is going to sit or how low it's going to sit in the front or anything like that. It's more or less just to give me an idea of how wide the front is going to sit, so we can go ahead and take a look at that right now. So again, here is the passenger side, which is completely OEM of how that sits. And then if we take a look at the other side, how much wider that's going to sit. Now, I have been debating how low I want the front flare to sit. I'm not sure if I want to have it come all the way down to the bottom or if I want to have it end like halfway up and kind of cut in. Everything is going to be custom. This is being more used as a template. I'll go ahead and show you guys the process that I'm doing. It is a little bit hard to explain because I don't have any experience doing this. There's someone that's coming up from Columbus to help me do this, and he knows how the whole process works. So I do have this stuff ordered. I'll try to include some photos in this video to show you the process of it, but I went ahead and ordered some of the materials that I need. It's basically just a huge box of fleece. It's what a lot of the guys use that make custom subwoofer boxes and stuff like that. What you basically do is, once I have the front flare on like I do, I will get that bolted on and secured so it won't be going anywhere, because tape would definitely not be strong enough. I'm going to take this fleece, essentially drape it over and secure it. I don't know what way I'm going to use to do that, if I want to use any kind of glue or if I want to staple the fleece in, because I know that's what they do on the subs, but obviously I don't know if I want to go crazy with stapling the Lotus too much. But essentially I'll be taking it, draping it over this whole section here. It will go up under here and it will kind of just get pulled. So that way there's not just random, it doesn't just start here, bump out, and then it just kind of looks like an afterthought as far as it's just like a flare that's thrown on the car. It doesn't, you know, flow that well. It kind of just pops out of nowhere. So the idea is to kind of fill in some of this space, have it flow a little bit nicer up over. So before I ordered this fleece, I went ahead and made a mock-up out of, well, at first I did some painter's tape just to give me an idea of how wide the whole body is going to sit. I'll put a photo in this video to show that. And then from there, I actually made some out of this black poster board right here. I'll put a couple photos in just for you guys to see. It is kind of time consuming to do it again, so I won't be doing it in this video. But just to give you guys an idea of how it's going to sit once it's done. So now that the front flare is kind of just taped and mocked up, since the rear wide body wheel is on, I'll go ahead and get the rear over fender taped up just so you guys can see that as well. Here is how the driver's side sits. Here's how it sits in the back. Rear bumper looks so much better than the OEM. I'll put another photo of how the OEM looks. It's not that the OEM looks that bad, but this is just so much more aggressive in the rear. I still have some work I need to do to it before it's like fully on and installed and everything. But I think having this bumper with the wide body is going to look great. My plan is to have essentially the flare, the wide body, extend all the way from here to the back and kind of just cut here to help follow this line and all that. So it's not just, you know, the flares coming out randomly on the body. Overall, I mean, it's going to be insane once the flares get started and everything. I'm mostly just waiting on my suspension to come back so I can actually get the car mobile. I'm going to be taking it somewhere else because as you guys can see, I have a decent amount of space on this side, which is fine. But on the passenger side, there's definitely no room to work. So I will be taking it somewhere else to start the wide body process, and I can start cutting the car up and everything from there. As you can see, I personally think the flare sits a little too low. That's why we're going to be doing something custom to have it sit up a little bit higher. But overall, just to show you how much wider it's going to sit. Also, I know it's getting a little dark out, so it might be a little bit hard to see. But I'm also waiting on a GT style wing from GRP. It is kind of being made to order, so it's not a huge rush to get it here on time anyway because the car's not going anywhere. But it will be replacing the OEM wing right here. It's super, super easy to replace. I'll show you guys the process right now. So you basically only have 2 bolts. So once you get the rear hatch opened up, there's just a little liner that's right here to help like against rain and all that, so no water gets in. 2 bolts right here. All I have to do is undo these 2 bolts, and then the 2 bolts on the other side. There is a wire that connects the rear light, which is on this side, so I'll just unplug that, and then it's that easy. The whole wing comes off. The reason I went with the GRP wing is because it actually utilizes the OEM bolt holes. So I'm super excited to not have to cut or modify or anything like that. It's going to be a pretty easy install, so I'm excited to get that on. All right, guys, that will wrap up the video for tonight. Do not forget to like and subscribe. Drop a comment. Let me know what you guys want to see for future content. I do have a lot more stuff planned with the Lotus. Like I said, I'm just waiting on a lot of parts to come in, mainly the suspension. Once that is in, the car will be mobile. I'll do some videos on that. Maybe a couple of driving videos and everything. But ideally, I will be moving it to a new location for me to actually start the wide body process so I can start cutting the car up, getting the flares actually mounted and not just taped up. As you guys saw early, I do not have hardly any room on the passenger side. So once that stuff comes in, we'll be able to get a lot more in depth with the build. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.